anything you go with, he'll enjoy talking about. So let's,
Okay.
yeah, let's enter iPhone into the conversation. Martez? Hey, yeah, you're muted. Hold on. You're connecting and doing your thing. I don't know how wait, the time of Zoom calls. I like your haircut.
Thank you. It's a little crazy, but funky. I mean, rather heavenly. How you been?
I'm really, really good. I'll tell you, I haven't told you enough about School of Future, but this is Katharina, and she's really excited to meet you and learn about her project as well. So I'll let you guys take it away. Okay.
Okay. Hi, Martez. Yeah, my name's Katharina. I'm a sophomore in California, and I'd like to get a better understanding of how racism affects people. So, thank you for taking the time to answer some questions about your experiences. And please let me know if you feel uncomfortable answering any of the questions, considering that they can be quite personal.
I appreciate the opportunity. It's nice meeting you.
Cool. So, first of all, how do you feel about talking about racism?
Um, I don't. You know what? I tend not to delve into the social commentary of sorts, or just getting on any type of soapbox, if that makes any sense. Just because I feel like everyone has an opinion and everyone has a different experience. So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like for me personally, I'd much rather fight change, or rather fight for change and do what I can in person, meaning like through my relationships, through my personal endeavors, through work, through my hobbies. I really try to basically talk about racism through my actions in terms of treating people how I want to be treated and how I think all humans should be treated.
Okay,
Does
thank
that make any sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. So, what can you tell me about your story in Detroit? Like how you grew up and stuff.
Um, well, I was born in 1992. I am 28. Um, my mother had me when she was 25. She came from a very disrupted household. So when she had my sister at 18, she was already living in the streets on her own, hustling and doing what she needed to do to take care of herself. So by the time I came around, I was a second kid. Um, I guess it was a very hard time for my mom still. She was very much in the thick of going through whatever. And so, anyways, I ended up getting taken out of her custody when I was 6 months old and being placed with my grandmother. When I was three, I moved to Missouri. Then I moved back up to Detroit. When I was eight, my great grandmother actually came and got me because I was in a foster home. And unbeknownst to me, I was about to get placed up for adoption. So I didn't know any of this at the time, but my great grandma came and got me and took me back to Detroit, where I experienced uh, what I didn't know at the time, but culture shock. I lived from the age of 3 until 8, so most of my development years in Missouri, in predominantly white areas. And beyond that, just that there was such a stark difference when I came back to Detroit in third grade. That would be 2001. That I didn't realize it, but I experienced culture shock. The level of scrutiny that the kids in the inner city like subjected me to just wasn't what I was used to. Like I was like one of the only black kids sometimes in my school or my class, but that never really made a difference. Nobody really ever called me out or tried to single me out. But when I got to Detroit, I I got made fun of so much because I sounded like a little white kid. I didn't care about my personal aesthetic. Whereas in Detroit, the literal level of scrutiny was so much higher. In the third grade, it was like a whole new world to me. So,
Mhm.
speeding up a little bit, I live with my great grandma on the east side of Detroit, and I found solace in reading after a while. Um, I don't know. I liked going away to different places and reading Harry Potter, and I just like reading. And then from that, I guess my comprehension skills really sharpened themselves, and I went from pretty much dang near failing out um just from acclimating, to Detroit. And when I finally did, I realized that you know I don't say I have a gift, but I felt like I was worth something. I found some self worth, through my academic achievements. Um, so by the time I was in middle school, was still, excuse me, doing all right, still living in the inner city. But Harry Potter kind of reading Harry Potter, that is kind of stuck with me. I don't know, because I always felt like a wizard in a muggle world, like how he had to sleep underneath the stairwell and how he just felt different from everybody. That's how I felt. You know what I mean? Even in Missouri, like having to leave all the time. Like in first grade, I went to four different schools. In kindergarten, I went to like three different schools. So it wasn't until second grade where I finally, was like, yes, I complete one school year with friends. I was always used to having to leave my friends and never say goodbye, and just when I came up to Detroit, it was I felt like isolated again. So the Harry Potter thing really stuck with me, and I mention that because between that and I don't know if you've ever seen Lizzie McGuire on Disney Channel, like, well, it's an old
No.
school show, but
Okay.
the actress is Hilary Duff, and she there is this movie, this Disney movie called Cadet Kelly, and she goes to um what is that called? Cadet school. What am I can't boot camp, excuse me. And
Hmm.
so between that and Harry Potter, somehow I made it up in my mind that I didn't want to just go to the regular public school around my neighborhood school, that is, because Detroit, we have really sometimes subpar schools and not a lot of funding. Sometimes we'd walk in a classroom, like in middle school, and literally there would be no teacher. So yeah, like it was interesting. So I knew I wanted to take a different path for myself, and I ended up entering this academic scholarship program where I got a full ride scholarship to go to this Catholic high school, and it was also a residential program. So I got to stay in a household full of five other young boys, or young guys rather, and stayed there all the way until I graduated.
Okay. Thank you. So you
The
already
longest
par-
story.
yeah, you already partially answered this that you enjoy reading, but what else do you enjoy spending your time doing and why?
I love singing and I really like making music. I think my favorite thing to do, which I'm usually kind of always doing no matter what, is listening to music. Um, I love making music. I feel like I have an ability to transfer and project energy, so healing energy, thoughtful energy, um, intensive energy. I feel like it's important to be able to, going back to the um, how I like to live through my actions thing, I think it's important to be able to connect with others and not just try good way, but to listen and just share that human experience if that makes sense, and let people know that they're not alone. And that's important to me. That's very, very important to me. I've been able to start journaling or doing a diary of sorts through my music, so that excites me and it makes me happy.
It's good. Okay. So, if you could have any job you wanted, what would it be?
Ooh. Well, what my dream goal is to be able to sustain myself from my music, but not only that, once I am able to say I've made a name for myself, which I partially have, I'd love to be able to start a residential boarding program for at-risk youth, like the one that I went to that sent me to school, because I don't know where I'd be if I didn't get that opportunity. And a lot of very bright, very, 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 very bright kids in all walks of life just never get the love they deserve. They never get the opportunities they deserve. And I'd like to change that when I'm able to, very soon. I think there's too much there's too much riffraff going on and not enough focused attention on children in terms of growth and development and communication, because I made a correlation myself with my younger siblings and cousins that with them always being on the computer and the phone now and like spending less time with other people, like both my little brother and my little cousin who are on the same age, they almost seem to have this not speech impediment, but like I don't even want to call it social awkwardness, but it's literally a different. It's almost like they're programmed different, and I noticed that kids are way smarter, just with using computers at a younger age. Like with kids being way smart and way more intelligent and being able to soak in all these things that I didn't get to soak in until I had my laptop at 14. I feel like we can't ignore the fact that they're understanding everything that much quicker. And with that, I think there just needs to be a clear, open line of communication. For me, I know that I needed more help than I was getting from my paternal home. So I would love at the end of the day to use my music as a catalyst to help me start a nonprofit for at-risk youth or profit. It don't matter. Just help the kids out.
Okay, thank you. So, what opportunities do you realize that people of color have access to that white people or don't have access to, sorry, that white people do have access to?
Um, you know what? The main thing for me that I always think about, I'll give you a perfect example, is like being in a car. Um, for instance, I was working in Indiana a couple weeks ago. I do bronze casted statue and sculpture conservation. So basically, I take care of sculptures and statues. And I was with my crew, and the one thing that I don't know if this was an experience that um, white people go through, but I always have to reaffirm my self-worth because in certain situations I'm scared to even be who I am. Like for instance, when I was in Indiana and when we first got there and we stopped at a little truck stop, it just felt I felt like I didn't want to be seen, like like I was being judged just for being who I am, and I'm not like play the victim type of person. Just that ideal goes into depending on who I'm with and where I am. I don't like sitting in the front seat because I don't want to be profiled. And it's not even like I said the thing of I play the victim of this, that, and the third. It's just it's like the whole driving while black ideal. Um, it's just it's forced into our heads that we are different and that we are, I don't want to say subpar, but we're different. And
Okay.
I just I I wish I had the opportunity to not have society try and impose that I have a lower value slash self-worth than anyone else. And I don't feel like every group has to deal with that.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yes. Thank you. So, how is your culture represented in books or art or other media?
I actually really love, and I'll tell you about um, a certain type of music that you should look into when you get a chance. It's called ghetto tech, like ghetto and then TEK, and it's a subgenre of techno. And basically, in a lot of, not a lot of, but a few of the inner cities here in Detroit, namely Chicago, Detroit, Miami, New Jersey, they have ghetto tech. And what that is a form of techno slash dance music that was derived straight from the hood, straight from producers who used the most bare minimum production techniques and whatever they had, and they started making tracks. And from this, there's literal dances that in each city they have a different form of ghetto tech, first and foremost. But it's literally a form of culture. It's like you dance, they have their own moves. It's literally its own sound. Every city has their own sound if they have a ghetto tech sound. And it's, to me, that it's a living embodiment of culture because it's a living, breathing thing. Like I'm listening to, actually, I love, it's called Jersey Club. And like there are some kids who are younger than me, like 2021, who totally flipped the script and they made a new style. But they like dance and they all produce and they're all like younger than like 25, and to me it's really, really cool because we have the same thing in Detroit, but it doesn't seem like the baton was passed from the creators of the ghetto tech before me. So point being, I'm just really happy to like be able to watch culture as it's happening. Um, music for sure, and I would say ghetto tech.
Okay. So, what motivates you to get through the day?
Mm, that's a good question. Recently, I've been working on some new music, and actually, sidebar, I went to California last year, and I ended up staying out in Venice for like 5 months, and it was a self-discovery journey of sorts, but one where you could say I went down a path I wasn't necessarily taking beforehand, and ended up getting some precarious situations. And from that, I learned that I wasn't loving myself in the way that I needed to. And I was also accepting the wrong types of love, two ideas that I never really thought about, like seriously. So when I came back to Detroit, this past November of 19, I was a bit shell shocked, and I think it took until about now, being October for me. No, excuse me, September is really when I started to address my my self worth and my bad habits, if that makes sense. And from that, I've been very motivated to. I'm like working on an album right now, but it's like uh, to myself. Like I'm singing all these love songs and breakup songs. Basically, it's like from the first person to the first person, and I'm like like calling myself by name, and it's been therapeutic. But to go back to the answer, it's been very, very. My motivation recently has been in bettering myself and trying to eliminate these self-destructive habits and replace them with positive or loving habits.
Okay, cool. So you said like uh, you weren't other people were letting other people not like sorry love you not how you not the way they were supposed to. Do you understand what I mean? Like, could
Basically,
you?
yeah, I'll elaborate. For instance, some of us, we accept the wrong types of love. Like, if someone is using you, if someone is being deceitful, to put it into more context, if one is allowing themselves to hang out with someone who they feel in the bottom of their heart doesn't have their best intentions, but they're lonely or just want to feel that companionship, that's not the right type of love, right? And I realized I was hanging out with people and doing things that beyond whether or not I would do them or not, I just kind of was ignoring like my instinct that perhaps some of the people I was hanging out with weren't positive forms of companionship. You know, they weren't good friends, they weren't good lovers, they weren't good for me and what I needed, but I still would hang out with certain people, do certain things, and I realized that that within itself is like a suicidal tendency when one starts to like lie to themselves and or if for instance, to put it into perspective, if I tell myself, oh, it'll be fine if I do this, um, but in the back of my head I'm saying, dang, I really don't think I should do this, but I'll do it anyways, and then I end up doing it, I'm removing myself from my instinct and or I'm ignoring what I know in my mind is right, if that makes sense. And the more one does that, the easier it is for one to lie to themselves. For instance, like how does one lie to themselves? You ask. When someone inherently knows something but ignores it within themselves, that could be anything, right? But it's like once somebody starts down that path, it's a slippery slope, and then it transfers over to people, start lying, just lying. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, that just means not being true, true to whoever you are, whoever your friends are. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, what do you think needs to change in your neighborhood? Like, what would you change?
hmm. I think actually what I kind of like doing sometimes, and it's like a pet peeve of mine with like my community, my neighborhood, my people in general, people need to stop throwing things on the floor. I don't care what it is. Stop littering. That's so annoying. It's so annoying to me. Literally, it's so annoying. Like sometimes when I'm absolutely bored or not bored, just walking back with the thousand plastic bags I see, I'll pick up the trash around me and just throw it away. And it's ambitious, but I know they have like zoning codes and districts for the city. I think they do for a lot of most cities, if I'm not mistaken. And I know I have a lot of friends to the point where I think I could like set up like a trash pickup like for every little district or zone rather in my city. It's mad ambitious, but that's what I'd like to do to immediately like change my neighborhood.
That would be so cool. So, why do
I
you think?
I,
No, continue.
I just want to elaborate on that. I think too, going back to the whole why I want to start a residential scholarship program is sometimes parents ain't the ones in terms of sometimes kids don't get taught nothing and they just sincerely don't know any better than what society is teaching them if it's not coming from home. And society in our country right now seems like a garbage pail. So, I would just like to supplement that love and that knowledge to kids who I know would be receptive to it because just like me, I know there were kids who hated when other people littered too, and just who really wanted to see the world, do things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, regarding the littering, do you think that has anything to do with like the specific area you live in, like the community and neighborhood?
Nothing is everywhere. I just think it's more so hmm, it's like a paternal thing. Like if it's not, I would almost say it's like a self-worth thing because it's like, yeah, it's like we're told we live in the inner city, we live in the hood, quote unquote. It's supposed to be dirty, it's supposed to be slummy, like, and then excuse my French, but like everybody's supposed to have this don't give a fuck attitude. And that I think that permeates more than just a front, it goes into everyday actions, So going back to the whole not wanting society to tell me that my self worth is lesser than anyone else's, I want that same to be said about my neighborhood, because if kids grow up, walking around trash and they're being told they're in a hood and they need to get out and do well in school, it's like setting the basis for kids to just not care about their neighborhood because they're being told that it's not good. Their schools aren't good. The suburbs are way better. They're better schools. It's cleaner, and it's just like just from that perspective and viewpoint, it's daunting. It gets very heavy to where you don't want to care because there's so much trash around, and you're like, forget it. Me throwing this ain't gonna do nothing more than what's already been done. And I'd like to eradicate that whole thought process of literally being told from birth that, you know, we're in a subpar living situation. You know what I mean? Like, it's people don't think about it, but it it's like taught. Like, um, just as I think racism is an issue from one culture to another, I think with that the self hatred and the devaluation of self worth goes hand in hand with that. And it almost plays into the stereotypes that racists um, deem appropriate to judge others on. So basically, it's almost like because our living experience isn't being examined, from a first person point of view, like people really don't think about the fact that we do things like throw things on the ground or bad mouth our neighborhood. People don't think about how that actually feeds into racism, and that's kind of racist within itself to our own selves. I feel like there's a lot of self-worth issues beyond other people that everyone needs to really address, because, and going back to your original question of if I like to, like, what are my views on how I approach racism, it's like, for me, I know that I have a lot of issues that come from how I think, how I was taught, like, and I know that at the start, the root is me. If I'm having a bad day, if I'm having a good day, um, if I choose to let something bother me, if I choose, or rather, if something makes me happy, you know, at the end of the day, I know I'm in control. And with that, I look at the negatives, of what I do that isn't right, if that makes sense. And a lot of people don't. Basically, it's like, I'm not playing a racist card without looking at myself and saying, well, what am I doing for myself? Because society can be what it is, but what am I doing? And I think for me, that's my whole angle, with everything. And that's really how I try to live, because we could talk all day, not us, of course, but in general, it's like on Facebook, social media, in the media, it's just like, I don't even have the time for those not real world conversations and viewpoints, because us people, we're like crystals in the sense that we can absorb energy. We can send out energy, but for some of us, when we absorb too much, riffraff, it's just not good. It's just not good at all. So I choose to not ignore, but I only engage when I know it's a fruitful conversation.
Okay, cool. So, what types of crime happen in your area?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything. Yeah. Detroit is. You know what? I feel mad safe. Like, being where I am, I'm actually living the closest to the hood that I've lived since I was with my great grandma as a kid. When I left her house at 14, I'm 28 now, and I feel safe in the sense that whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But I don't think there are as many um, senseless acts of violence or crime as in some cities like Chicago, for instance, where you have a lot of innocent people getting shot, a lot of brutality. Here, there's usually a cause, or it's not just senseless for the most part. Beyond the fact that they probably could have did something else, there's usually a reason beyond that. So, point being, if one stays out of Dodge, for the most part, you're good.
Mm-hmm. So, is this like for all of Detroit, or are there like specific areas which are more impacted?
Oh, for sure. There are definitely um what we would call the zones or whatever, like the neighborhoods. Where it's like, oh, you don't want to go there. But it's like, in the same token, a few streets down the road, there are quite a few beautiful neighborhoods, from the 30s, 40s, 50s, that were predominantly wealthy families, and it's an interesting mix because Detroit actually, and I don't want to misspeak on this, but Northland Mall in Detroit, just outside of Detroit actually, was one of the first malls. And with that, the riots in the 60s, that was what actually caused what we now know as like suburbs. Like we used to have a lot more white people, Jewish people, Polish people, everybody who lived in the city. And then after the riots, they moved out of the city, and so did for a long time a lot of the resources, a lot of the grocery stores, like malls. There's so much in the suburbs. We're literally just now starting to get a Meyer grocery store or a Walmart. I think there's like one Walmart in Detroit. If you think that's crazy, if you think about it, there's like a Walmart everywhere. You know what I mean? Like everywhere, and we got like one. I mentioned that because there are problem areas, but it's everywhere. I feel like I don't know. To a certain extent, I feel like some things are systematic and were planned. And mm, I don't know. I just got to be careful wherever you are, you know, and keep your nose out of the ground. Should be all right.
Okay, thank you.
I think um Detroit's interesting though, and it's interesting that you asked me about that because the it's funny. I went to a Catholic high school, so I got to um experience and talk to kids, you know, from different areas, not just from my neighborhood school. And you would be surprised at literally how many kids would tell me their parents didn't let them go to Detroit at all. Like that's serious. Like for real, for real, for real, for real, for real, for real. Like for real, for real. Like people just didn't go. Like it was like bad. I remember watching Jay Leno as a kid, and I had to, he been done. So this was like I was a kid, and there is something. He's making a joke, and the punchline was, "Oh yeah, I guess you know that's Detroit. It's on fire," and they show like city on fire or something, and it's like it was just like a joke, but it was instigating the whole thought process behind that learned um racism, if that makes sense. You know that learned bias that one area is worse than another, one group of people is worse than another. Um, yeah, that stuck out to me, you know. So like, here I am as a kid, you know, feeling weird about transitioning in the space, and it's like I'm being told from every corner that like I'm in the midst of not good, you know, that it doesn't do good for the soul, it doesn't do good for you know your chi.
Hmm. Okay, so can you tell me about how you would act if the police approached you?
It depends on the day. I'll tell you about my last experience. Actually, I was going to catch the bus, and it was on a side street, and there were cars in the road. So basically, and it was at night, so I had to stand dang near in the street to be seen because it was a side street, and if he didn't see me, he was going to blow right past. So as I see the bus literally coming, I can see it a couple of streets down. I'm going out to peek, you know, and see if it's coming. A cop passes me, and sure enough, he slows down, you know, and they like turn around, and I'm like looking good. I'm about to go to a party, you know, my friends like art gallery like show. So I'm definitely not looking like a bum, none of that. You know, I'm not looking like I'm pretending good. And they just like first thing they asked me if I had my ID. What do you need my ID for? I immediately caught attitude, and I didn't mean to, but I'm like, what are you doing? Like clearly I'm about to catch the bus. They're like questioning me because I was in the middle of the street, and I was like, yes, I'm sorry, but I'm actually just trying to catch the bus that you can see right behind us. You know what I mean? I say it that nice. I definitely had an attitude. And yeah, I just didn't see the point. Like I was very forthcoming with, you know, information and what I was doing and my purpose. And they weren't it wasn't bad or anything. I didn't mean to get that, what's the word? Unruly. I didn't get unruly, but I definitely had a little too. You know what I mean? I wasn't as polite as I could have been, but I'm like, I'm trying to catch this bus. Y'all better not make me late. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, but honestly, here in the city and in general in Detroit, I feel like we have a really good rapport with the policeman because it's a very dangerous job here. You know, it's just not all traffic tickets and whatever. It's like when these policemen go into these neighborhoods, sometimes they know, you know, these people will shoot back or do whatever. So it's a different tone here in Detroit. Like we weren't riding. We were like when everything was happening this summer, like we were like guarding our Nike store from the people from the suburbs breaking it in and stuff because we don't have much. You know, and our police officers, in my opinion, and I think in the general opinion, you know, they let us be. We are all right in that instance. You know, I think that um, it's a positive thing in the sense that there isn't just sheer disrespect. You know what I mean? As I don't necessarily like the slander of anybody in general. There definitely needs to be some policy changes in terms of the police force across the board. However, I also am not. I don't really feel like marching around all them people. Y'all still marching. Let's. I'm going to do something else. And on top of not marching, I'm definitely not riding. I'm not destroying my own stuff. Um, not right now. Not right now. I really respect having never have been in jail. You know, definitely having had cause to go once or twice if a cop had pulled me over, you know, and stop and frisk me or whatever, like they used to be able to do in New York. Like definitely could have a record of sorts, a petty record. You know what I mean? Nothing crazy, but the fact that I don't and that I've been able to just keep a clean record. Um, I stay out the way, and at the same time, I have a general respect for the police officers here in our city because they have a dangerous job and they don't really do us too well.
Okay, thanks. Um, can you tell me about the process that you go through when you create new art?
Oh, what? Are you hearing that?
Yes, I am. Is that coming from your side?
A part. I don't know. That's kind of weird. I didn't hear you actually. Whatever you had just said. Can you repeat that?
Okay, so yeah. Can you tell me about the process that you go through when you create new art, like music?
Mm, it's a little different for me these days. I've actually been in the process of recording a lot of new stuff since August. The um, I've got a alter ego of sorts. It's not like my full artist name, but it's like Sextez. And so the name of my record that I've been working on is called like Sextez Self Care. And I've been loving recording outside and recording while I'm moving and just expressing myself. I know that may sound mundane, but I was asking a buddy of mine how they created specifically. and I was asking them if it was something that they channeled or that they thought about. And sometimes, like, it'll just come to me, like whatever it is, it flows. And don't necessarily know where it comes from, but it just flows. And then sometimes with some records,
You're frozen. Can you hear me?
I'll have and
You're breaking up. Martez? Hello? You still there? Martez? Hello? Can you see me? I can't hear you. Lovely. Okay. Ist nicht an unserer Seite, also soll es gut sein.
Why you meow so crispy? I mean, you literally stop airflow mid-sentence. You'll just be like, meow. Now you're trying to stop my airflow.
Hi, Kelsey, in case you're listening to this. Oh.
Hello?
Oh, hi.
Hey, I'm sorry, my phone had died. I apologize.
It's no problem. Okay. You were like, I think you cut off somewhere when you were talking about how it flows, your music and your ideas.
Oh, yes. So that was a question that interested me because I don't have one. I don't have one set. What's the word? Not technique. I don't have any just one way. Sometimes I channel it. Sometimes I know what I want. Sometimes I just express myself, you know? Recently, I've just been trying to have fun. So, for me, I've been just channeling whatever comes from my head to myself. I've been feeling like I've recently been using music as a means to communicate with myself. Like, seriously, like let my inner voice speak and listen to him and see what he has to say and do a little reflecting. And it's been really awesome. I've been creating recently as a means of therapy, I guess. But it's been helping and it's been working, and I feel the most balanced I've felt in a long time. So yeah, I don't know. I asked my friend, a very close friend of mine, the same thing, like if he channeled it or if he just wrote or what. And method, that was the word I was looking for. I think everybody has a different method. And mine's changed from time to time. Sometimes I'm inspired by a person. Recently, though, I've just been talking to myself, as crazy as that sounds, musically.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are some of your more common themes when you create music?
My upbringing, for sure. That's one of them. The love life, or chase thereof. Yeah, personal experiences definitely inspire quite a bit. Records, that is, with people. People inspire a lot. God, and our divinity as a people, as a part of one. I speak on that a bit, and starting to speak on energy and love.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So, what makes someone racist?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I could really I honestly don't think I could give you a definition. It's too convoluted.
Okay.
Like, because I feel like, I don't know where the line is. Because, for instance, to put it into a specific ideal that comes to mind for me, I don't know the difference between when someone is just adhering to what stereotypes they think may be true, or beliefs that they've gained on their own that then make them less kind to others, or less favorable to interact with other people. I don't know where that line is drawn. All right, I got you. Okay, a racist is someone who outwardly goes out of their way to make another group feel bad. Because you can feel whatever you want. I don't really care. But don't be outwardly doing that. You're going to get bopped in the head. So to speak.
Okay. So, why are these, like, what causes these people to be racist?
Ignorance and accepting ignorance, their own ignorance, and or lying themselves. As in, they don't know because of whatever they were taught. They're going off of what they were taught, or there are people who choose to disregard the basic humanity that we feel when we interact with one another, or beyond choosing to disregard that, they have their guard up personally so much that they can't see a person as just that instead of a thing or a foreign object. Fear and ignorance. I'd say those are the two main things.
Okay. So, tell me about a time you experienced or witnessed racism.
Dang. Oh, okay, I got you. So I had two buddies of mine over who were both white. One who I don't trust anymore, and I alluded to my other friend that he shouldn't trust in financial manners and otherwise. And instead of adhering to my advice, he basically, after I hung out with these two people, person A, who was the person who was not to be trusted, and person B, my friend, who I'm saying, I'm hanging out with this person, but it's for a reason, don't trust them. I called person B the next day. We were supposed to hang out. I wanted to borrow his light. And he was like, I didn't like your attitude yesterday. You were being something. And I didn't understand what he meant. I was being a little moody. And I was like, well, yeah, it's because I'm telling you this guy jipped me, lot of D, lot of die. And I honestly had a good day, lot of do, lot of D. Point being, the racism I experienced was my friend, who I considered a friend, disregarded my advice to not interact with someone else. And not only did he interact with that person the next day, all while ignoring me after telling me that I had been acting weird or been acting bitchy, quote unquote, and wouldn't give me an explanation why. So during the same time as I'm racking my brain trying to figure out what I did wrong, person B is hanging out with person A to the extent that they allow person A to steal $1,500 from them. So Where's racism, you ask? Why is it that you just assumed I was being bitchy? And then 2, you totally disregarded my advice to not interact with this person. And because, and this is an inference, I'm inferring what I'm going to say next. And because he was another white guy who left, you assumed you could trust him. Oh shit, my fucking phone died again. Damn it. Fuck. Sorry, pardon. I thought my phone died.
Okay.
Unplug it. Excuse the expression.
Mm-hmm.
Point being, and this is a different type of racism, but why is it assumed that, 1 second, I'm just gonna grab my charger so I can be back in line. Why is it assumed that, to put it into a cultural reference, why am I being the angry black woman when in reality, you think just because this dude somewhat is similar to you, y'all might have something in common, that he's your friend? That ain't right, B. And he saw that I wasn't just being weird the very next day when what happened. And that was a new one for me. But I realized, that's not a vindictive form of racism. That's just you assumed whatever, and you thought you could be comfortable with because they were the same. And that, not only that, but you disregarded me. So that's what immediately stands out to me. It's funny, the friend that I'm talking about is actually from San Francisco, and he moved here with because his sister's here with her husband, and they do a lot of real estate and whatnot. But point being, I definitely have had to have a conversation with that friend about how not only was it disrespectful to disregard me in that manner and totally ignore me, but then to be so shocked and surprised at what I had advised, or rather warned him of. It was like, it goes into, you're not giving me respect. You're not respecting my word. You're not respecting, not even my wishes. You're not respecting me and what I'm trying to, the information I'm trying to give you that will help you. And I think it was also more of a class thing, you know what I mean? Because I think my friend assumed that my other buddy had money or whatnot, but it all ties into the fact that it's clear as day. He just thought he could relate to the dude, which isn't, that's not a wrong at all. It's not wrong to relate to someone at all. But when you disregard my warning, and I know you're feeling so trustworthy just because y'all got some commonalities, that one stuck with me a little bit. But yeah, so that was the last time I experienced racism. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So, what do you feel white people don't notice that people of color do?
I remember as a kid, for me, I noticed in relation to our conversation, the absence of Black caricatures or African American cultural aspects of everyday life. Like, for instance, Band-Aids. I remember being a kid and I'm like, why are all these, Band-Aids? Like, there are no black Band-Aids. There are no brown Band-Aids. It wasn't even why are they all white? It's like, why aren't there any this? Oh, I will hit you with the thing that really, really, I went to the DIA, which is the Detroit Institute of Arts. It's our main art museum here in the city. Beautiful collection, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful collection. And they got to the Renaissance period with all the fancy angels and all of them. And it's like, where is the black angels? Not even like that, but yeah, no, that I left feeling very sad. Just because it spoke a lot. It spoke a lot to me on how I noticed the absence of color in certain time periods and certain forms of art. And it just was striking to me, especially the Renaissance period. I'm speaking of, what's that ceiling? The guy who's touching the one guy's finger. Da Vinci? I think it's Da Vinci. Point being, that one, like that era of art, and how people look at that as the classic image, of angels and Christian imagery, in terms of angels. And it's like, just the absence. I think to answer your question as it relates to that example, I feel like the first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that I don't know if white people necessarily notice the absence of placement for them. Does that make sense? Like, black people notice exclusivity when things aren't inclusive. And it's not even a meant thing. It's just, so it goes. Like, that's what I...
Okay.
That's what I perceived.
Okay. Are you religious?
Very spiritual.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. So, can you tell me about a time you were frustrated because of racism?
I was living with my great grandma, and I had to be like 8 or 9 or 10, 8, 9 or 10, one of them, probably about 10. And my grandma in Missouri, who was my mom's mom, who basically had left my mom alone when she was younger, she let me do whatever I want from like 3 on. Like, I got placed in the foster home when I was 5. And like, when I was used to being at home by myself when the freaking school counselor came. Anyways, going with my great grandma, she was from the old school. She wasn't playing none of that. And I had a friend down the street who I would hang out with. His name was James. James. And we would always hang out, always hang out. And I was used to staying over at my friend's house, so to do la da dee. My grandma, she just wouldn't let me go. And I was like, I got really fed up one day, and I like started crying. I was like, so I think it's because you're racist. And it was I said it because I couldn't see any other reason as to why she wouldn't let me stay the night. Like, I could stay the night with some other friends, and my grandmother has met his grandmother, like literally lived down the street. Like, it was one of those. And I don't remember how that conversation went. I just remember I was very, very emotional. And at the end of the day, I got to stay at my friend's. But my grandma, I mentioned that though, because she was like, she was 80s. She was in her 80s, and she was from Mississippi. Like, she came from a family of sharecroppers, so she literally experienced like a different life, you know. And yeah, she was just trying to protect me and trying to do what was right, you know. And I don't, like I said, even with my last example of perceived racism, it wasn't even necessarily that it was a malice type of situation, or that it was a vengeful form of racism. However, I'm still racist, and it upset me. And I mean, yeah, she started letting me stay. So, you know, I that was the first and last time we had to have that conversation. Oh yeah, and sometimes they would like my uncle, he would like freaking pick at me because I like Justin Timberlake, and I like would love everything Justin Timberlake as a kid. And like they would always like, why you that white boy? I'd be like, shut up. That would like irritate me. But yeah. Just as a kid, having boundaries put on me that I thought weren't necessary in terms of telling me who I should and shouldn't hang out with. That's what comes to mind.
Okay, thank you. How do you interact differently with white people than with people of color?
It happens naturally. I can't even help it. I'm like a chameleon sometimes, like my inflection of my conversation and my body language, everything. It's not even like I mean to. Sometimes I just naturally do. I assimilate, you know? Yeah, it's not even a thought thing. It's just my verbiage and not even necessarily what I talk about, but how I talk. Definitely how I talk. Definitely talk different to like my black friends and my white friends. But in Detroit, it's interesting because you never know. Some people, you might think they're clean cut or whatever, but they'll be the most hood person ever, and they're like white. So it's like it just comes and goes with the person. But I definitely know that there's a change in my physical communication, you know, that I don't mean to do, but like I said, I just naturally assimilate to whomever I'm around.
Okay, cool. So how do you wish white people act differently when they're socializing with the other race or with people of color?
I wish everyone would be a little bit more thoughtful and listen a little more. Thoughtful of others, to be exact, and be willing to listen to an other's viewpoint and or life position. I feel like there's a lot to be learned, and some people don't. They just don't care to listen. Maybe they're too distracted. Maybe they got a lot going on. But an active listener is like someone who is going to walk away having a better understanding with the person that they listen to than they did before having that conversation. No matter what the person they were listening to talked about, if you're really listening, you're going to have a better understanding of whatever said person intended. And I think that is like literally the key to everything, because I hate it when, for instance, if we're talking about race or something and you can literally see the other person waiting to say whatever they're going to say, or they keep interrupting you. It's just like, to actively listen, one must be silent, and actually take in what's going on and not just try to spill out their own viewpoint. And I think that is crucial for everybody. To answer your question, and beyond that, I feel like we need to listen a little bit more as a people to each other and ourselves again. I think there's a huge issue within our society where we've allowed ourselves as a people to lie to ourselves, and that's a slippery slope.
Okay. And what is noticeable when you hang out with different ethnic people? And like, there's something obvious, just that no one talks about it.
That's a good one. It's like so normal for like a lot of my friends who are white to still be living with their parents after high school, after they graduate, after college even. Up until now, of course, it's COVID, so that makes sense. Everybody should be doing something. But point being, there's a stark difference in belief with a lot of Black families where it's like, you shouldn't be at the nest after a certain age. And like, for instance, my mom, like, I can't ask her for $20 and I've never lived with her, just because now she's under the impression that I'm grown. And so therefore I'm owed nothing, which is true. However, I don't get no help at all, like at all. And in terms of how that relates to what I was mentioning, there's a difference in belief and practice in terms of when kids get kicked out the nest, and I don't necessarily think that's even a bad thing, because I feel like in a lot of situations, it's good and or it's fruitful for whomever to be in their paternal situation, and they shouldn't just be getting kicked out or thrown out so soon. However, in the Black community, I feel like that's something that's a little bit too prevalent. And I feel like that's something that people, if you really kind of talk to a lot of your friends, white and Black, like, well, now I'm older, like I'm 28, so like everyone that you will talk to would live with their parents, but you know what I mean? Like, I know way more kids who dropped out of high school who were Black than white. Like, I went to private school and I graduated and all that, but afterwards, and people I have met, like, there's just a certain life standard, I feel like, that like, oh yeah, okay, I'll make it broader. Like, we're not like, Black people don't expect sheer excellence. Like, that's not what hold on. Rather, it's almost expected to mess up if you live in the inner city, or it's almost expected that you will falter, Whereas in other communities, parents go the extra mile and the community goes the extra mile to try to strengthen, the kids and strengthen whatever case may be, I think that's something that's mad obvious, but people talk about, but not in the sense of like our culture and how we're actually like raising kids, you know?
Okay, thanks. So you said you don't protest or march, or like you definitely don't riot, but how has the Black Lives Matter movement impacted you?
It makes me physically present. To try to be the best person who I can be, to be the best example that I can be for what a person who matters like acts like, you know, looks like, feels like, interacts like. It's something I live with. Even though I haven't gone on any of the marches. I'm there, you know. It's here every day, all day, and I feel all the sentiments, you know. I just personally am of the type to where for me, I'd rather work on something productive for myself on the personal level than spend my time where I could more likely than not get shot with some sand bullet or something. You know what I mean? Like, look, nope. It seems like, and don't get me wrong, I am always standing in solidarity with my people, but I'm not about to put myself in way of danger or harm. Like, no. I mean, yes, but no. And if I'm marching, I'm probably about to throw something at your window or like drag down your statue, because like for me, I feel like if you want change to happen, sometimes you got to make it happen. So if I'm really feeling it, you know, it's going all the way down, like, because, and it's been proven in history, sometimes the only way you can make a change is when you make a change, you know. So I'm sitting over here happy-go-lucky in the fact that I'm not allowing all the political issues, all the societal issues to truly get under my skin, because I've got so much going on personally in terms of and bettering my person and who I am, you know, that not even that I don't want to be sidetracked. I really barely have the energy to feed into something that isn't fruitfully helping me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So
And sorry, last
yeah.
point I do have to make. I'm not about to be standing out with all these people when we're supposed to be wearing masks. Stay at home. What are you doing? That's all I have to say.
Okay, cool. So how do you think the protests have impacted other people, like people of color or white people?
I think they've been awesome, because I think it's awesome to have allies, and we need allies. People who are ostracized and who are not the minority, but the afflicted need people to speak on their behalf, because there are self-worth issues that come into play for people who've been told that they're less than, where someone like me might not necessarily say something if someone says something that I probably shouldn't let slide. One, because I try not to get too affected, but two, beyond that, there is a time and place to stand up and speak on what one deems right or wrong. And in the case I'm referring to, if someone says something ignorant or hurtful, and I choose not to speak on it because I don't want to be that guy, I definitely appreciate my homie who was like, no, that's messed up, B. You know what I mean? You shouldn't do that because XYZ. So it's beautiful, because it's taxing having to be that guy. You know what I mean? Like, so I end up like calling myself not being affected or afflicted, even if I am, and I'll ignore and choose not to engage in something. Whereas if I had an ally, it would come off different and it would help me not give energy to something that could possibly just make the person who said whatever defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to seem like I'm playing any cards or playing a victim or guilting, when in reality, certain things do need to be said. And it's like, maybe I'm just not the person to say it. And I really do appreciate just the sentiment being shared over and over, because Black lives do matter. And, you know, as we're talking, a lot of what I've been thinking about in my head is the fact that I've been taught that I don't matter, and that, you know, we haven't mattered for so long. And I know I matter, and I feel it, and it's just a good sense of encouragement every time I see it. To be honest, it has gotten to the point for me though where I want to see some Muslim lives matter, Islamic lives matter, you know, Jewish lives matter. I want to see all of that, because everybody does matter. You know, I'm not on the whole all lives matter thing, but everyone does matter. And there are a lot of people who are ostracized, period. And here in Metro Detroit, we have the third largest concentration of Arabic Americans and in the country. So definitely come face to face with a lot of people who may have received a lot more ostracism and racism than I have. And that's something that I just, you know, I'm sensitive to. I think everyone does matter, and it'll get to the point where hopefully, you know, we get to strengthen everyone's self-worth.
Okay, so thank you. And finally, what change can be created to stop and prevent racism?
Everyone should have to have like an interview like this or something. I think there's a lot of personal reflection that goes into being asked questions and having to answer them that makes one think of their own experiences from a different perspective. I think communication is definitely key. We can't, on either side, on any side, I don't think one can just adhere to the notes given from their own societal viewpoint. Like, to say it differently, like, one almost has to be able to step out of themselves to there's some self-examination that goes into racism, and I think that needs to be explored. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
The last thing I will say is like, I feel like a lot of solutions can come from our own internal actions and reflection, our internal reflection in terms of how we react to people, what we choose to assume, what we choose to react to, what we choose to be affected by. or how we choose to react when we are affected by things. It's almost like I can't really. It's like I can't fight like with hate. Me personally, I'm gonna kill you with all the kindness. I'm gonna show you what you really thought was, but it ain't at all. And you're gonna hate how much you love me because you thought when that wasn't the case. And that's the biggest win ever, is when I'm able to change someone's perspective or their mindset of who they thought I was, when in reality, once they let their guard down and see who I am, realize that that's not the case at all, you know? And I think, going into what I was just saying, I feel like a lot of people who may be afflicted by racism have to fight a little differently. We have to examine a little differently, because I feel like at the end of the day, I don't care who racist. I don't care who the president is. I don't care nothing about nobody. If I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and I'm making it happen in my community for whoever that is, whatever that means, you know, if I'm financially stable, able to afford others opportunities, really lifting people up and giving them good energy, that matters so much more, almost to me, even than changing, you know, a perspective. Because for me, helping others is the ultimate. That's the ultimate change. That's the ultimate win for me. So to put it in a simple statement, I feel like everyone should address their personal everyone's got some self-actualizing to do to see what they choose to be affected by. And we got to start change through our actions, our own personal actions. It literally starts with each one teach one, you know? And yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Those were great answers, and I had a great time talking with you.
Thank you. It was a very insightful interview, and I've truly enjoyed it.
Do you maybe have any questions for me or anything?
Yeah, what part of Cali are you in?
Kind of what?
What part of Cali are you?
I was born in the Bay Area, and in 5th grade, I moved to the Santa Cruz Mountains, like Monterey.
Oh,
wow. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's cool. I have another question. What are your thoughts on the homeless population in California, if you have any thoughts at all?
Like in the mountains here, it's not that obvious. I don't see it much. And like where I used to live, I didn't see it much either, but I know that it's there. And if I'm ever in the city, I see them and I think like, wow, how can this happen? And like, I don't know what caused them to be homeless. So, and I don't really know what people or the city or the government is trying to do to help them. So I don't really know much about that topic.
I hear you. I just had to ask. California, man, it's a crazy place. But I had such a crazy experience out there. I just pretty much made myself like homeless. I was staying with my buddy in Brentwood, which is right next to Santa Monica. And then I ended up just like leaving and going down to the beach and being a stinking beach bum for like 5 months. But you know what? It was like some of the craziest times I've ever had, but the interactions with all the people, bar none, some of the most interesting people who I never thought I'd meet in that situation, you know, and it just made me, at the end of that experience, more understanding of my mom's situation, and it made me more compassionate for being patient and knowing that she had a lot to heal from, you know, from her upbringing. And basically being around a lot of those people made me see just how everybody heals differently, you know, and some people are afflicted by some things way more than others. And just that, it made me a little bit more knowledgeable and compassionate, I'd say, to people in general who I probably would just used to call like bums and like crackheads, you know? But yeah, I don't know. I just, I had to ask because that was such a huge part of it is such a huge part of my life and what I've been writing about. Cali, man, Venice is still with me. I feel like I'm still there.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Sorry.
One more thing. Do you listen to music?
Sometimes, yeah.
Who's your fave?
I just listen. I do homework and I listen. I don't like look and see who's singing or what band I'm listening to. I just listen.
Yeah,
But
take it in.
I was in Germany for a year and I took part in this like dancing class, like ballroom dancing, and like we did salsa and samba and like also cha-cha-cha and like waltz, and it was amazing. Although I still don't know. Yeah.
Oh, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Your name, where's your family from?
Both my parents are from Germany.
Wow, I love that name. That's awesome.
Thank you. And I just remembered, referring back to your question about homelessness, we were in San Francisco, like beginning and middle of August, because we were driving to Washington, and then the car was like, not broke down, but something was wrong with it, and we wouldn't have been able to continue driving, so we stopped at the mechanic. And while the car was getting fixed, we walked around, and then I just saw these people, and then I'm like thinking, what happened to them? Why are they like this? And then I might have been staring a little too much, because then this guy waved at me, and like I was kind of worried, like what would I waved back, but like I don't know if they're like crazy, what would happen, like I don't know what they would do. I don't know if they're like mentally have problems or anything.
Yeah.
So that's kind of affected me.
I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I know that feeling. And that is a good word. You never know. You always got to be a little cautious of who you interact with, no matter what. I hear you. I've never been to San Francisco. I hear it's crazy out there. The amount of people who are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just 10. But yes, thank you so much. And I hope this has been a good interview for you.
Yes, it has. Thank you a lot. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. This is really cool. I appreciate you. And I appreciate Kelsey for asking me to do so. Or Miss Arrington?
Okay, then yeah. Bye, maybe, I guess.
Bye. Nice meeting you. Take care and be well.
You too.